2:37 a.m. The locks click twice, once for the bolt, once for the knob. Not habit, obedience. The instruction sits in the bones now, older than sleep, younger than fear. The taped box rests on the table, where it has rested since evening. Weight familiar in the forearms, corners neat, label printed by a machine that is sure of itself. Payment landed hours earlier, larger than the bill that had been hunting me all month. Upstairs, a floorboard shifts. That detail does not belong to the ritual. It began with a deposit that arrived before agreement did. Not payroll, not a refund, not a lucky error to be reversed by morning. A clean number from a sender that looked like a placeholder, blinking inside an app like oxygen. Rent had started acting like a verdict. Groceries were subtraction. Sidework stretched thin enough to see daylight through. A profile matched a few hours earlier turned into math that made sense. Age stated as mid-40s, even though the headshot angled toward 35. Weekly support, tasks described as errands and presents. Intimacy disclaimed like a warranty that would never be needed. Discretion promised as a virtue paid on time. Before a decision could form, instructions followed with the clarity of a checklist. Move the conversation to a quieter channel, provide receipts, do not linger, avoid neighbors, double lock doors on entry and on exit. The rule repeated until it felt like a signature. It sounded clinical rather than seductive, which made it easier to accept. The first tasks were the faces of favors. Collect an envelope at a mailbox store that rents identities for the month. Activate a prepaid phone on a strip mall curb so conversations could be kept on an island. Deposit something at a small bank where even the carpet apologizes. Slide a sealed parcel into an after-hours hatch that asks no questions because it has never practiced asking. Photograph the door I have closed, the code I have entered, the latch that sits obedient in frame. Proof goes out, money comes in. The cycle trains attention without asking permission. Gratitude arrives in tidy sentences that read the same way every time, gratitude like a product with a barcode. The only theater lives at thresholds. Close, turn, check. Leave the world outside the door to take care of itself. Then the flower pot appears in a message. Blue ceramic on a stoop in a neighborhood where lawn edges practice good posture. Under it, a key with dust-remembering thumbprints. The house it belongs to knows how to sag among the tidy. Paint lifts in quiet sheets. A chain-link fence leans toward the sidewalk as if listening. Porch light flickers the way tired wiring improvises. Between street and door stands a man built like a locked toolbox. Shoulders that love work, shaved head catching light, arms that look like they have already agreed to something. He occupies rather than blocks, observes rather than asks. The rule about skipping small talk stops being polite and becomes survival. Inside tastes like a room that has not chosen anyone in months. Dust lays everything into one fabric. Furniture wears sheets with indifference of exhaustion. On a low table, a taped box waits with the confidence of an object that expects to be carried. Overhead, a floorboard gives a small opinion. The job is to lift, respect the locks, refuse the world, and leave. The locks behave like well-paid employees. The man on the stoop does not move, does not speak, does not offer any shape that could be confused with help. The gate complains. The neighborhood pretends not to hear. A storage unit miles away receives the package like a chapel receives a candle. Corridors hum fluorescent. The code works on the first try. Shelves inside have already learned to accept exactly that size. The deposit lands before the corrugated door kisses concrete. If there is a test, it feels like accounting rather than thrill-seeking.
Repetition becomes architecture. The body learns roots it did not plan to learn. A second storage complex has a different smell: ink, warmed paper, the dry throat of toner. Instead of shelves, a plain desk stands inside with military neatness. A file box sits open. A stack of forms presents signature lines where lives become official: executor, witness, date, address. None of those lines have space for my name, yet the printer hums itself awake without being touched and opens its tray like a mouth. Inside the box, photocopies, government letterhead, transfers of property acknowledged, change of address forms with the stamps that make people possible to find or forgivable to lose, scanned IDs pressed flat by glass, a clipped face with eyes drained of context. The file reads less like evidence and more like bookkeeping. The deposit that follows lands double with a label that uses the word excellent as if praise were a switch on a machine. The door rule multiplies until it is the only sentence that matters. Messages arrive with the same instruction repeated twice, sometimes in caps, sometimes with please added like garnish. Check both locks. Do not leave the door open to breathe. Close it before you think. The repetition reshapes more than hands. The apartment door receives 2 turns without needing to ask. Car doors get checked twice in a parking lot where nothing has ever happened. The bathroom stall receives a double click because the nervous system cannot tell the difference between appropriate and required. 2 taps on a pocket to feel keys. 2 clicks on a pen before signing receipts. The habit spreads like ivy. Compulsion disguises itself as prudence and then stops disguising itself. The man from the porch lives everywhere thresholds live. A different house, a different town, the same posture, stillness as a tool. He appears at the end of a row of storage units, leaning against a column, attention heavy enough to be felt without eye contact. He appears in the slope of a rear view, then does not, then does, intervals that prove he is not following but knows where people go when they leave. Presence works like weather. The rule about silence stops being courtesy and becomes boundary. Neighbors and bystanders enter the ledger like unwanted witnesses. A woman watering plants too late at night lets attention linger on the box in my hands, then on the idling car. The smile she offers belongs to someone who has learned that curiosity can be recreational. The refusal I offer belongs to a rule about not exchanging words. The deposit lands even faster after that errand, as if the system rewards choosing absence over explanation. At a gym locker serving as a drop, a folder slides into a space that has memorized the dimensions of secrets. A bonus lands large enough to make rent look like an asterisk. Praise follows about reliability, precision, discretion. A sentence arrives at the end that shifts temperature. A note about being part of it now. A remark about no one else honoring doors the way I do. The praise sounds like a key turning in a lock I had not noticed. The second storage unit not only smells like warmed paper, it behaves like record keeping. On a neat table, a ledger sheet sits filled with dates that are mine, times that match my completion messages, and one clean column left blank. The page looks like it expects names. The printer hums even when I do nothing. The air takes on the temperature of a room that has learned it is being watched. I place a box where a box wants to live and close the door too hard. The deposit lands again with a second number attached called retention. The blank column follows me home and spreads across sleep. In dreams, it lengthens off the page, down the wall, across the floor, patient, waiting for handwriting.
The first time content refuses to stay abstract happens under neutral weather. The message asks for a late-night run 3 towns away. Same pot, same locks, same speed. A kitchen cabinet to the left of the stove holds a zippered pouch that rattles like school supplies, but carries the weight and silence of something that aggregates elsewhere into trouble. The drop point is a locker at a 24-hour gym, a place that sells weatherless time. The box fits with friction that will not be noticed by anyone except the person who wants to notice. The bonus arrives too fast to respect the laws of banking. It is hard to tell when a job stops being a gig and becomes a system that uses people as parts. The erosion is polite. The little accounts that life avoids opening get opened for you. A new number pings, and the tone is identical to the old one. Someone records that you lock doors like instructions were etched into the hinge. The next message contains a different flavor in the caution. The same house appears, the same stoop, the same man occupying air in a way that makes passing feel like trespassing. This time, the box is upstairs. The noise announces floorboards from the left above, deliberate drags and pauses like a person moving weight without urgency. The instruction for staying out of conversations does not help staircases. To obey the rule, the staircase must be climbed. Halfway up, the sound stops. The house begins listening harder than any house knows how. Retreat is an unheroic verb, and also a wise one. The empty table downstairs counts as a cue. The locks accept the key with gratitude. The gate squeals as if to leave a record. The street refuses to hold witnesses. At the storage unit, the code that has never failed refuses to work. The keypad listens to fingers and offers nothing back. Messages travel into silence. Payment does not arrive. The habit of doubling locks still arrives on time. The ledger with the blank column produces a second sheet in the head labeled consequences and refuses to fill itself in. Silence is not the end of a pattern. It is the quiet part of it. On the fourth day with no pings, a new number sends a familiar tone. Gratitude, logistics, the door rule. Pick up at a condo with a key box. Drop at a newly built unit with a fresh code. Photograph the door after locking. Payment promised, not posted. A system encouraging itself back into shape. The body remembers how to cooperate even when the mind has practiced rehearsing refusal. Preparations occur under the umbrella of responsibility to a future self. Screenshots archived to a location that will not disappear if a device gets lost. Notes in a small book the size of a wallet. License plates near pickup points recorded in case memory needs scaffolding. The prepaid wakes up from its drawer with dustering evidence of a previous life. Towers find it like hounds. The condo door opens into real estate staging. A mat that implies shoe removal, hooks that pretend lives hang easily, a bench that has never felt a human. In the kitchen, a package sits in the exact spot where familiarity insists it should sit. The apartment hums with the HVAC regular of new places. No upstairs footsteps, no second breath. Photographs of work done line up inside the camera roll. Door closed, latch in frame, numbers visible. Evidence of obedience. The new storage complex smells like applied policy. The paint is still arguing with air. The aisle lights buzz with ambition. The door code works with the eager-to-please impatience of anything new. Inside, a shelf labeled with letters instead of numbers waits like a filing cabinet that decided to be an altar. The box takes its place. The fluorescent hum shifts at the very edge of hearing. At the far end of the aisle, a figure makes itself present by not moving. Shoulders squared, hands empty, gaze set at that particular no distance that people who count on you to do your job without interference adopt. He does not approach, does not block, does not do anything that would give anyone standing a reason to say anything. He stands the way rules stand.
Checklists finishes because checklists are the last dignity. Door down, lock through, photo of latch. A walk past him where neutrality is the only expression, hands visible because cities train that reflex. The car breathes relief it does not deserve. Payment waits until morning to arrive, and when it does, it arrives larger than agreed. An accompanying note uses words that close doors. Not needed at this time, appreciation for discretion, retention. The ledger in the head draws a line across a column. The blank stays blank because it has learned patience. Stopping becomes a maintenance decision rather than a climax. Numbers change, accounts close, devices go back to sleep in drawers with their tired chargers. The new rituals remain. 2 clicks for everything with a hinge, 2 taps on a pocket for keys, 2 checks of the car handles in a lot where nothing has ever happened.
Normal hours fill with lawful work, classes, groceries that become shopping again instead of subtraction. The life shrinks back to a domestic geometry. Aftershocks arrive in little envelopes. A piece of mail addressed to a name not mine slides through the door slot. The return address is a mailbox store 15 miles away. Inside lies a single sheet with a barcode that resolves to nowhere. The bag carrying the trash containing that sheet feels heavier than paper should make it. A neighbor who always took stairs begins taking the elevator and finding me there. Eyes travel the way eyes travel when they are gathering or confirming something small. Across the street, a man with a shaved head stands once next to a newspaper box with his attention entirely elsewhere. Not him, but close enough to prove that noticing has its own gravity. Closure dresses up as sightseeing and leads to a drive past the first house. The chain-link fence is gone, replaced by proper white wood that is practiced for listings. Fresh paint has a voice. The blue pot still sits on the stoop with new soil dark against ceramic. The hand knows exactly where to reach without reaching. No man stands on the porch. The street swallows the memory whole. In the mirror, 3 driveways down, a figure stares at something unrelated. A laugh starts, then refuses to land. Performances evaporate when no audience respects them. Screenshots live hidden and duplicated. The spiral notebook with coffee stains and a smeared line where the printer hummed keeps its place on a shelf that does not draw attention. The prepaid phone sleeps next to dead gift cards in a box that used to belong to a pair of shoes. The account that used to capture deposits becomes numbers again instead of rescue. Online, the storage complex that once contained a humming printer posts an update about new policy requiring additional documentation for units that store record-keeping materials. The date on the policy reaches back to the week a tray opened like a mouth. Systems tighten bolts when something has slipped through, or to make it look like nothing can. The upstairs footstep from months ago keeps echoing, even in an apartment that does not have stairs. It borrows shapes. The expansion of old wooden heat, a neighbor stepping into the hall, the elevator cable easing under weight. At times, the ritual of the locks catches a sound and answers it with the second click, which is not an argument but a counter. The kitchen light goes off after the chest loosens. Nothing happens. That is the ending most arrangements prefer, because spectacle breeds questions and maintenance breeds silence. The damage is not a headline. It is the shape the day adopts without asking. The pleasure of a box placed exactly where it belongs. The satisfaction of a latch meeting a strike with that soft engine sound. The calm that follows a checklist completed in the right order. These are honest hungers. A design learned them and built a circuit that feeds them, compensates them, and asks them to obey a rule about doors. The rule moved in and is not leaving.
Some nights, the deadbolt slides home, and the hand stays there because the body wants attendance taken. It writes an invisible tick in the corner of a blank mental square, present without signing. The ledger with the literal blank column may have found another name to fill itself. The one in the head has learned to be content with marks that stay private. Across the room, a shadow looks like a man leaning against a column. It isn't. Down the hall, the elevator hum leans toward the sound a printer makes when waking. It doesn't last. On a walk 3 blocks from home, a storage truck noses into a driveway and reveals shelves inside designed to hold boxes of a size the forearms know intimately. It belongs to someone else entirely. The habit outlives the job. 2 clicks, 2 taps, 2 checks. A life that fits again and breathes is still edited by a rule learned to please a stranger. Perhaps the worst part is how humane it felt while it rewrote me. The errands never raised their voice. The money arrived when it needed to. The man on the porch never said a word. He existed like gravity, observed only because something fell. If he or the system he stands for require anything again, a number I have not muted will announce it in a tone that belongs to chores and trains and calendars. It will say something about a door and a key and a box that weighs paper. It will say nothing about names. The second click will happen in my apartment anyway.
At 2:37 a.m., locks still click twice. Not habit. Obedience. Or maybe obedience that has become habit. The upstairs footstep that does not belong to this building happens in the head, and the second click answers. The empty column in the ledger from the aisle where a figure did not move still waits somewhere with patience. Names travel toward it or around it every day without knowing. Mine lives on rent receipts and a class roster and a library card that still smells faintly of dust and printing. The door sits with its rectangle of responsibility in the dark and does nothing spectacular. Counting happens anyway.